Thanks for tuning in to Cymark Bike Parts. What I'm going to do today is to change the lithium battery on my rear wheel tyre pressure sensor monitor. Now my bike is a 2014 R1200GSA and I think just over time the battery will and has indeed lost its power. Now what I'm seeing symptomatically is an error message on my tyre pressures and also occasionally the danger sign on the dash, or alarm sign on the dash. So something's wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with the system itself. It's worked now for a good 8 or 9 years, and I'm just presuming that the battery's going flat. Now I have taken a look online on the cost of the to have the pressure sensor replaced. BMW seemingly do not service it, i.e. change the battery, and I think the amount was so eye-watering that I've kind of blanked it out. So rather than pay squillions of pounds to have a brand new sensor fitted, I've decided to change the battery. Now this has been done already by much better people than I on the net, and there's a few channels on YouTube or people on YouTube who've done it, but I just thought I would diarise my experience just in case it gives somebody else another option to consider. But certainly if you've got the tools and the know-how, it could save you so much money by simply changing the battery yourself. So I'll crack on now and video it step by step, and let's see how we go. Now here we are ready to remove the sensor itself. You can't miss it, but it's black. It fits with the underneath the tyre valve itself. It's approximately 70 millimeters in length and 25 millimeters in width. It's held in place by the valve assembly itself, which can be removed. It's a standard thread, so it's left to undo using a 12mm spanner. Now I'm actually using a 12mm ratchet ring spanner because it allows you to remove the fastener a lot easier than with a simple open-ended spanner. Make sure that you hang on to the sensor while you're doing it, just to stop it from wobbling all over the place, if that makes sense. So I've pre-loosened it, and be aware it's held in place by thread lock, so you will have to put a little bit of leverage on it firstly to get that thread lock to crack. Once the fastener is off, and that's it there, put it to one side, don't lose it. You should then be able to remove the sensor itself. And there we go, it's out, there it is. Now the battery is buried underneath that resin there. So what I aim to do now is to chip away at that resin to reveal and remove and replace the battery. I'll also take time to give this a bit of a clean up as well. There is a sealing ring which comes with this, and BMW say that it should be replaced. I'll have details of the ordering code on the next clip. Now, on closer examination of the unit, mine doesn't seem to have a housing ring, which is stated on the BMW repair and service data. So maybe my sensor is of an earlier model where it wasn't required. What it has got is a rubberized collar, which I presume makes the seal between the monitor itself and the rim of the tyre. Obviously you'll have to inspect this, and if it's ripped or torn in any way and won't guarantee a good reseal, then you might have to buy the whole unit. However, if that rubber seal there is in good order, then we can afford to proceed. Right, I'm just about to attempt to dig out the battery out of the sender unit itself. Now, it's buried deep in the sender unit. There's a couple of guys who have already said that you have to literally dig it out, and it's just a shame that it's not a serviceable item, because it would mean that a simple battery replacement would solve this issue rather than having to buy a completely new one from BMW if you should have to go down that route. So the battery that's in it is a CR2032. They're a couple of quid each, I think, off eBay, and that's for a good quality Duracell one. What I've done is I've ordered some Duracell batteries, and I've also ordered some batteries which come with a weldable tag on them, on the top side and the bottom side. This is because the battery inside the unit itself is meant to have these tags on, so I'm replacing it, hopefully like for like. Now, to do the job and to get through the resin which holds the battery in place, I've got a penknife, a simple sharp blade off a Stanley knife, and the Stanley knife itself. So here we go. I'll see how we get on, and I'll see if I can dig out the battery. Firstly, I'm going to attempt to remove the upper tab, which seems to be micro spot welded in place. So I'm using a Stanley blade itself to get underneath the tab itself and to prise it up off of the battery itself. The first bit's come up okay, but it's quite tightly welded into place. So let's see if some pliers might help with that. Yeah, I've just felt the two weld tabs go. I'm trying to now break the second group of weld tabs. Yep, and there we go. I've just managed to crack off the second set of weld tabs, and I'm now bending the tab itself back so that I can hopefully get underneath the battery and ease it out, remembering that on the bottom side of the battery there's a further connection terminal or tab to be eased off. Now, here's something interesting about the battery. Here's the battery removed, by the way, from the unit, and the specifications for the battery is that brand new it produces 3.3 volts, and it's considered dead when it gets to about 2.8 volts. So I'm just going to see what voltage this is. This is the battery I've taken out, by the way, is pushing out, and yeah, 2.7, 2.8, 2.9 tends to be the range, so that tells me that the battery is indeed just about dead, and that's what's been causing all the error messages on the bike. So the battery is now fitted back within the assembly itself. For the lower tab or terminal, I've relied on pressure to push it against the bottom of the battery, and for the upper one I've gone and just put a blob of solder on there to hopefully hold it in place. Now, to test it, before I put it back in the wheel and put the wheel back on the bike, blah 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 blah, I turn the bike on and then use some compressed air to blast it into the hole on the bottom of the monitor to see if I would get any sort of signal on the bike at all, just to let me know that it's connected and it's working. And indeed I did. I got an error message up saying that there was a loss of pressure, which is what I wanted. It means that it's communicating with the bike itself. So I'm now going to go ahead and fill in the cavity with some hot glue. Right, so I'm at the stage where I'm about to seal it or apply the hot glue. Now, I'm afraid I'm using my heat gun because my hot glue applicator was stolen when I was broken into recently, so I hope whoever it was dies a painful death after a long protracted illness of AIDS. Anyways, on with the job in hand. That's okay, that's the new battery fitted into the sender unit. I've used pressure to hold the lower tab or terminal onto the bottom of the battery, and I've used a blob of solder to keep the top tab in place on the top of the battery, and with it held down I've encompassed the whole thing in hot glue, which is now dried, and if with the aid of a sticky thing I should be able to point out to you the battery, the tang if you can see it, and also the opaqueness of the glue, which is now currently setting in place. I've also tested the unit by blowing air into the hole on the bottom of the assembly, and that has registered on the dash itself, so I know that the battery is connected and I know that it's sending some sort of signal to the bike. So the next job is to fit it to the bike and try it. So that's the tyre pressure monitor refitted to the wheel. One point on that, there's quite a delicate rubber seal around the base of the valve stem, and it's important that on refitting this forms a good airtight seal with the wheel itself. Now, to avoid any catching, snagging or ripping of the rubber, I've gone and used a good quality silicone grease, which I just put around the base of the valve stem, around the rubber seal, to make sure that when I relocated the tyre pressure monitor, it went into the ring or the hole quite well with no snagging or catching. It's been tested, as you know. It's just a matter of refitting the wheel or refitting the tyre to the wheel and refitting the wheel to the bike, and that's the job done without having to purchase a very expensive brand new tyre pressure monitor, which at the end of the day we did not need. So I hope this is of benefit to you all. We may offer this as a service on our site in due course. Please keep an eye on our Facebook web page, and in the meantime, ride safe and bye for now.